Is it just me, or does it seem like CBD is in everything these days? This used to bother me a lot until I read up on the history of the cannabis plant and realized it might have been a much more important part of our lives throughout human history than I originally thought. Join me as we explore this for a few minutes. I'm Amberlynn Vital, and my food for thought for today is about cannabis as food, not just for us as humans, but maybe for the animals that we raised and thus in the animal products that we consume from those animals. So let's just think about this a minute. I got kind of aggravated by the fact that in the supplement industry, CBD is everywhere. It's in your cocktail, it's in your coffee, it's in your chai mix, it's in your snack, it's in your chocolate. Like, it's just showing up everywhere as though we think we need it every time we turn around in the day. And I just thought, it's a medicine, it's an herb. Does everybody really need it that much? Well, cannabis as a plant just happens to be the richest concentration of these things called cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids. There are a lot of other things in the cannabis plant. Obviously, certain cannabinoids that we know very well, like delta-9 THC and CBD, cannabidiol. But there's over 100 different cannabinoids. And there are hundreds of other compounds, including terpenes, flavonols, fatty acids, all kinds of things that interact in what is called this entourage effect of that plant. But we still find these phytocannabinoids or cannabinoid-like or endocannabinoid system interacting compounds in a lot of other plants. The top 5 are actually helichrysum, which is a type of sunflower, echinacea, black truffles, black pepper, and then my favorite, and yours probably cacao, the chocolate, the bean that makes chocolate. Some of these interact directly with receptors in our endocannabinoid system in our bodies. Some of them interact in some way, like cacao has compounds that deflect the breakdown of your own endocannabinoids, your own pharmacy of compounds that you make. The cacao kind of interferes with those enzymes in the breakdown, so you feel your own endocannabinoids longer, and it lends to this sort of blissful feeling that you can get with chocolate. So all these different compounds and all these different plants, your medicinal mushrooms like your chaga, your reishi, your lion's mane, these have endocannabinoid enhancing compounds. They interact with the endocannabinoid system. So it's really a lot more prevalent than we think. It's not just the cannabis plant. And in the cannabis plant, you have high THC cannabis, which has become known as marijuana, which I don't like to use because it's a slang term and it refers back to a period in history. Which has to do with immigration and trying to cast slurs upon people coming from Mexico and what they brought with them that was supposed to have denigrated society. So I don't like to use that word. I just like to differentiate that we're talking high THC cannabis or high CBD cannabis. At this juncture, that's pretty much what we have. And the structure of the plant, the shape, the size, the look of the leaves, this may all vary, but all in all, we're looking at a cannabis plant in a high THC or a low THC, high CBD version. So this is what everybody's typically talking about. Where have we seen this in human history? When we look at the history of this plant, not just medicinally, but economically and agriculturally and industrially, it goes back at least 12,000 years with human history. In other words, there are seeds and evidence of fibers and clothing and tools to utilize aspects of the cannabis plant at archaeological sites that date back that far. And then in written history in the Vedas and in Chinese tomes that go back thousands of years, you have indications for its use as a medicine. You have indications for it being a sacrament and associated with the contact of certain devic entities, and also as a use as part of economy for paper, for fiber, for clothing, for rope. And then in any situation where it would be a part of the economy like that, you would be using that also to feed your animals, your livestock, whatever cows or muskox or, water buffalo or sheep or goats or camels or whatever, wherever you are in the world, that's being used. And the cannabis plant, though it may have originated on the Tibetan plateau, spread down into what is now India and Southeast Asia, spread into Africa, spread into what is now all of Europe, into Russia, and then, of course, came across the oceans into the Americas. It has been utilized and found in cultures in all these places. And if a culture were dependent upon hemp or cannabis as a part of their economy and their medicine, but especially the economy, that requires growing large amounts of it, that flowery, chewy, tasty tops could easily have been fed to their animals. And there are people out there that are postulating that from the egg yolks, the fatty portion of milk products from animals, and the fatty portion of meats from animals, humans could easily have been consuming 200 to 500 milligrams of phytocannabinoids every day. Wow. So if your genetic lineage and the way that your genes express and what genetic history you carry with you is wrapped up in that kind of a story, your genes may be used to expressing themselves as having phytocannabinoids in the diet. And if you don't, you may feel true deficiencies. And those deficiencies came about in this time of prohibition where, it was pulled in Canada and in the US and in Europe and other places in the world. The hemp even was just pulled out of supply and no longer fed to animals, and therefore animal products no longer had that, obviously not used as medicine in a lot of places. This ripping it from the fabric of society at the same time that people became more disconnected. They went to work in cities. They started to work indoors in factories. The connection with nature, the connection with other people in our community, the food quality changed to more processed, more high sugar, less whole foods, less fruits, vegetables, fibers, less quality into the animal products. All of this can affect the endocannabinoid system. So you're pulling it out of the food supply on one hand, and at the same time removing other aspects that help to balance the endocannabinoid system. So I do believe today that there are people who have true deficiencies and need those phytocannabinoids, whichever high THC or low THC, high CBD source it comes from, or a combination in their diet, in their supplementation on a daily basis. So that's just food for thought. It's something I've been thinking about a lot and why I don't mind so much seeing it in a lot of areas. I just want to talk to people, want people to understand why it might be that they are representing a deficiency of phytocannabinoids and all the places they might be able to balance that out. Thanks for listening today. Until we meet again, live long, live strong, and make a difference.